What's up guys, and welcome back to Pop Beat Breakdowns. Today's beat that I made, it is a Post Malone country type beat. Now the reason why I wanted to break down a beat in this style is because Post Malone has released a couple of tracks recently in this style, but more importantly as well, I do think with his new album coming out in the next month, there's going to be a lot of music in this sort of style that's going to be influenced by that album. So I thought it'd be very relevant to do a Post Malone country type beat, break it down. So if you're someone who's new to music production or wanting to refine your craft, hopefully you find this video helpful. As always with these sorts of videos, the idea is by watching someone break down a production they've made, hopefully you get a better understanding of how you can build up productions in a similar style, and hopefully there'll be some tips and tricks along the way that you can pick up to help refine your craft as a producer. As always, make sure you smash the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, but let's not waste any more time. We've got the project in front of us, so let's first have a listen to the beat we've made and then we're going to break it down. Okay, now the thing I love about beats that I break down on this channel is I always try to have them as simple as possible, because these are all beats which you can definitely make for yourself 100%. Now, of course, there's always going to be things with some external plugins I use, but the premise is always the same. So whether you're a Logic user or you use FL Studio, different DAW, maybe you've got different presets, different plugins, different VSTs, you can still arrive at similar results, because everything I do to make this beat is very simple. There's nothing complex going on, and it's a country genre beat, kind of influenced by a couple of, again, them singles that Post Malone had released recently. I feel like this is a sound that's really going to pick up that sort of like country rap sound. So let's start with how I started building up this song. Now, I've actually built this around a splice loop today. Sometimes I like to record a real acoustic guitar. Sometimes I like to use stuff like Contact. Today, I went into splice because, emphasis again, there's no problem using samples, especially no matter how good you are at music, and today this was the first initial sample that I came across. Now it's in the key of G major and it was 120 BPM. I haven't changed anything in them parameters, so we built it around that. Then I also went into splice, tried to add something else to it, trying to find some like inspiration, kind of like a country feel to it, which I could build a track around. So then I found this sample as well, which I threw in at the top. So big shout out to Nathan Chapman. He's done a great job with these two loops and it helped arrive at this finished production. Now everything we do from here is building around these two first initial ideas. Starting with that canvas, we got our paint colors. Let's make this track. So the first thing I wanted to do is actually add a drum beat to the track. Sometimes I find it's the easiest thing to do when you have that first initial idea, because you can get a real good sense of the energy early on. So this is the drum beat. Now, of all my drums, I always try to put them into one bus, so you can mix all the MIDI drums separately and then together. Kind of gives it a more of a gelling effect from a mix point of view. Now, let's break down everything one by one, because I used today Native Instruments and I used the Drum Lab to get the drums exactly how I wanted them to sound. Now, I had to go through a couple of presets, but for the kick and the snare, I ended up in some sort of Drum Lab presets. So let's break this down one by one firstly. So I started with the kick, which is here, which I'll just solo by itself so you can hear it. Just so you can get an idea for the sort of sounds that I've added. Then we've got the snare, which again is Drum Lab. Now this snare is actually quite hot. I do feel like acoustic drums was the way to go with this, especially because it's country music, and the snare in a couple of the country tracks I listened to as reference for Post Malone had very hot sounding snares, so that's why I originally ended up at this snare sound. If you're interested to know what snare it was the stable snare blended in with Shot Layer in Drum Lab in the big bright room, and it's on the Fat preset. Now, when it comes to the rest of the drums, the fills, this was actually Abbey Road's 80s drummer, and we've got this as well. Again, this is the Abbey Road 80s drummer, and then I've just done for EQing, just try to increase the high end, because sometimes I find that MIDI drums lack that brightness, so just keep that in mind when you're mixing your drums. And then on top of that as well, I just added in this little hi-hat, which again is the Abbey Road 80s drummer, which you saw, and that completes the drum kit. Now, as for processing on the output of the drums, nothing this time around. Kept it all simple because I did a lot of the sort of EQing on the output. Again, we're keeping this so super simple. Now, with all this so far, it was time to start building now on the guitar ideas because very guitar influenced this. So the first thing I added was the guitar E-picks. Now, you're going to see a common theme of this is using the session guitarist by Native Instrument. This is fantastic, especially if you do not play any instruments at all. We went for the Cold Lake sample. We just had to make sure we set the parameters to G major, and then where the notes line up on the keyboard, it will start playing the loops. And one thing I love to do for country tracks is to add this, the scanner vibrato. Now, I'm going to play you this both with and without so you can really hear the difference that this makes. This is straight out the tin. I haven't done anything adjusting-wise. This it is a Logic plugin. If you want to know where it is, just go into your modulation, and there it is. This is for Logic users. You can find something similar in other DWs, but this gives a really nice country guitar sound out of the output. So let's have a listen to this both with and without. I'm going to play it without first, and then we're going to add it in. As you can hear, guys, add a really nice modulate vibrato, which really suits this style of production. So that's just a little trick, a little plugin that you can add effects-wise. And I feel like it's something that I added to also this other guitar pattern, which I found just trying to blend these patterns at this point together at this point to try and create a lot of movement in the rhythm section, which is predominantly in this song, the guitars. So this is the second layer that I added. And then I added a similar pattern as well, but with acoustic guitar. If you're wondering what the acoustic guitar is, it is the Strummed Acoustic 2 by Native Instruments. Then we also have another electric vintage, Cold Lake A, so another melody. And then we've also got as well Simple A, which this is just strummed chords. And when you put all these different patterns together, you get this. Now, again, this isn't as easy as it seems, because even though you can find all the loops and the ideas in the Native Instruments preset library of these VST plugins, you still got to mix it right, put it together. As you can see, there has been some adjusting done with the volumes, because you've got to try and get them to the sort of like right balance for it to actually sound good. Also, a little tip as well is to make sure you're using the doubling effect on any of your rhythm guitars. Puts it out to the sides of the mix, creates this really nice stereo effect especially out of the session guitarist bundles, so I always try to do that. If not, I'm using a sample delay slightly to the left or slightly to the right in order to get that same separation effect. Now, this next thing that I added, which I want to quickly skip this because this is a very exciting feature that Logic has added recently, and this is I'll call it the AI session bassist. So what I've done here, if we go to the top here, I added in the chords. So you can see the chords are C, G, E minor, D. Now, because I've added all this to the top in the chords section, when I added in the session player thing, which I don't know exactly what it's called, and put in pop rock, I was able to let Logic come up with a bass pattern based on the punchy bottom. And again, it's simple, but this saves so much time. And the beautiful thing is, in different sections, you can add subtle variations. And from a production point of view, it saves you so much time. And I wanted to use it, especially for a pop beat breakdown. And as you can hear, like, I'm very happy with the result, how it came out. And yeah, so that in itself was very easy to do, adding the bass. Now, this was one more little pattern I added, the simple one. I forgot to mention that as well. I thought I'd quickly play that. And then to add some development for the final chorus, I added this as well. I think it was the second single that Post Malone released. I heard a violin, but you also hear violin solos quite a lot in country music, even if it's just in the background. So I wanted to make sure I added one. So I went into Contact and I used the session strings too. And again, it was just a very simple sustain violin. And I just added in this very simple melody, put it into the background. As you can see, mixing-wise, I added a sample delay with a sample delay to the right, meaning it's spread out to the sides of the mix with a slight bias to the left-hand side because you hear it on that side first. But that stereo effect, like that is created from the sample delay, means that the violin sits more in the background and around you more than in the forefront, so it doesn't stick out in the chorus as much. And when you put that all together, you get the finished track. Now, for those of you wondering what I've done for the mastering, I just quickly for the channel EQ, what I do first is I listen to the track and hear what it's currently like lacking or what there's too much of. And for this one, there was lacking a little bit low end and a little bit of that mid brightness. So I just basically did a simple boost in all of them sections. Again, nothing fancy going on. And I went into Ozone 9 and I actually used a preset. The preset I used today was, I don't know why it's not appearing, but it was the country pop preset, and it worked absolute wonders on the track to give me the finished result. So yeah, guys, that is how I made the Post Malone Country Type Beat. I hope this video was helpful. If you got any more questions after watching this, comment below. I'll be happy to answer them. But till then, guys, thank you so much for watching. Keep making music, and I'll see you in the next Pop Beat Breakdown.